All right, welcome to class. So today, if you have a block of some sort, or even something you could just, a little raise that you could put your foot up on, that'll be helpful later, and perhaps a belt or something you use as an extension strap. So welcome to class, and feel free to lie back. If you want to start seated, that's also fine. We will do some lying down things before we come up, so just find a comfortable position for yourself, and welcome to class. So a belt and a block. If you're just coming on, welcome. So as you find your settled place to be, just close your eyes. Swallow to relax your throat. Rest down the tongue, part the teeth. So we just immediately start to drop away from the energy used to communicate outward, and we shift that energy so that we can conserve it and also turn it back toward ourselves. Receive those efforts to help us recover and support ourselves. So then as you're tuning into maybe tight spots or held tensions in the body, sometimes just letting your awareness land on it like a spotlight, just that awareness and observation, if your intention is to relax, often can help reduce levels of muscle tension. So see if you can just kind of take your little spotlight of awareness through your body. Sometimes this is held even more emotionally, like in your heart space or your solar plexus or your gut. It's hard to really differentiate between what's held emotionally and physically because they're so deeply intertwined. Just anywhere, even in your mind, if your mind just feels uptight, just shine that spotlight right there at the head. Sometimes we think of the mind being there. Certainly the brain has a lot of mechanisms it helps us with, but that's for a later conversation. But just wherever you imagine tension or feel tension, let your spotlight sweep through and soften it as an awareness that you've come here to relax, to shift gears, to actually change your physiological state of being. And then everything else that sort of dominoes from that, healthier nervous system, healthier function of the rest and digest mode in your body, healing occurs. Overall stress in our lives begins to lessen. And then come into the breath. So nice and easy, you'll just draw the breath in, sponging it in gently, and then exhale out of the mouth, flush it out like you're giving it a path to clear. And do that a few times, just at your own pace, your own breadth of how much you expand. Think of it carrying out maybe some of those known tensions that you've been holding. Whenever you feel those cleansing breaths starting to calm, you can start to shift then back toward the inhale and exhale, moving through the nose. So let that be in your timing. And no matter how many years I've worked with and studied the breath, it's always a nice reminder to recognize that whatever's happening in our lives, one thing that we can always come to that will make a difference is our breath. And yesterday I went into this with some depth, but just want to cover a small bit of it, of this idea of biomechanical needs for the breath. So if we think of our lungs and heart and upper torso and shoulders as kind of the upper room of the breath, where the literal oxygen enters the lungs and works with the heart and then transfers back out the unneeded CO2. That top floor there, when we expand it, we can think of the body shape is sort of the walls, the roof, and the ceiling. So your shoulders, collarbones, shoulder muscles, even what's going on in the neck can either assist a positive way of breathing, which we want to have many options to our breath, or it can restrict it. The same with our ribs. You can think of the front of the ribs, through the solar plexus, the heart, the back of the ribs, and then the side ribs. So these walls to the room of our breath, we want to be able to have expansive, including the ceiling. And then the floor, we might think of as the diaphragm. It's at that underside of the top floor of the breath. And as, of course, is meant to be a great mover of the breath. But as it moves, the floor drops some, and then the floor comes back up, has a lovely way of massaging the heart and lungs. And so what we want to discover through this thing we always pay attention to, the breath, is perhaps what part of the room might feel stuck from day to day. One of the yoga therapists I worked with for years and learning from him, Matthew Taylor was his name, and he would really work with clients that had level 10 pain, weren't receiving any help, and when he would work with them, before he'd give physical movement, he'd work with the breath, and he would almost always have success with the person if they did their homework of reducing those pain levels that really come from the cycle of the nervous system and this whole cascading effect. So, as you're breathing in and out of the nose now, I want you to feel sort of just that top floor. What's going on with the tension in the neck and shoulders? I know that's a place for many of us, me as well, that can get stuck. And then sometimes we learn that the bottom floor, the belly and the solar plexus, isn't allowing the drop. So we learn to relax that more. One of the first breaths we teach in yoga is just belly breathing. Can you let your abdomen relax enough to pull the breath in that direction, in that way, one of the many ways we want to breathe. If you've been doing some of these breathing practices with me for a while, you might just be able to think about breathing laterally and make that happen so that your side ribs expand and then they narrow again. You might be able to direct the breath toward the front of the ribs where the chest and solar plexus and a little bit of the belly expands. And then soften toward the earth. And then maybe you can even direct it straight back into the back body. And if not, don't stress out about that. Just know that those are directionals we practice. And then we move the body in a variety of ways in order to make sure those compartment spaces for the breath have availability of movement. We don't get sticky in the tissues. We don't have muscles that atrophy. We don't have joints that start to get stuck. So just notice the shape of your breath. Don't try to make it right or wrong. Notice where it seems to be moving with ease and where it might be restricted. You're not trying to change it so much, but just feeling your capacity at this point without overbreathing, without going into that little bit of hyperventilation. And as your next in-breath comes, wiggle the fingers and the toes. Let your head begin to sway gently. You don't have to match the breath, just move at a comfortable pace and let your breath be smooth and comfortable.
As your head returns, we're going into what I really call more of a pendiculation now than a stretch. So like if you're waking up in the morning, bend your elbows, tighten your fists, tighten your face, start to tighten your buttocks, your legs, and flex the feet, and then start to reach it out. So there becomes, after you tighten that a little bit, like you were first getting up in the morning, then you'll feel this need to stretch and lengthen it out. You might even get a little shaking in there. That's a sign of a good pendiculation, just like you might see your dog or kitty stretch and how they might shake a little at the end of their wake up, pendiculating. And then you just try different angles, like you tighten a little and you reach. Yawning is great. That's a natural pendiculation as well. And you might reach skyward. You might arc and lean over to the side. So you just give yourself a lot of freedom. It's not about necessarily looking like a normal yoga stretch that we'll also do, but giving yourself freedom to explore what your wonderful mammalian body wants to do. And then if your hands and wrists are willing, lace your fingers, push the palms away, arc and lean side to side. And point down the toes of the side of the body that's open. As you lean to the right again, point those left toes, comfortable in your shoulders as you reach, and breathe into the left side ribs, left side underarm, all the way down the left side of the body. So you might feel a physical expansion there that's bigger than the right side. Part of that is because of the shape of your body right now, and part of that's because you're directing it. Good. Come back to center, arc over to the left, point your right toes, direct the breath to the right. And even just getting the empowered knowing that you can direct the breath. You can absolutely move it to specific areas. Let the diaphragm expand in different directions. Notice what you need to access. If you're tight someplace, breathe toward it. And come back to center. Excellent. Bend the elbows, release your arms down, and bend into the knees. If you have a cushion there, let's move it out. Then bring your right knee in and interlace lightly, either round the knee or tuck between the thigh and the calf. Let's, if comfortable for you, inchworm and sort of slide your left leg out, keeping the knee pointing toward the ceiling. Reach out through the heel and soften that inner groin. So we're doing our best to keep the pelvis level and that left front of the groin pretty relaxed. You might even take it, depending on how your back feels, by a little farther by scooting your upper back up. So you just kind of catch the skin of the ribs and the shoulder blades, and you elongate your upper back up the mat, and then broaden the chest. So here, your ribs are more neutral, which means like the 360-degree bands of this rib basket have sort of this equidistant feeling, which can allow the breath to move differently as well. And it's a good position to have neutral ribs to access more full breaths. Let's rotate the right ankle. And go the other way. So note on this one, we're not hugging in so tightly that our low back's flattened heavily to the floor. It's the pelvis that's really the focal point of weight at this time. And you're feeling hopefully a nice neutral spine in the low back. All right, then spread out the toes. And then from here, let the knee move out the length of the arms, and then let your left hand very gently draw the knee toward more like the belly button and the center of the chest or the sternum, not so much pulling way across toward the left shoulder. So in that, you'll hopefully feel a little stretch in the outer buttock. If you happen to have some sciatic issues in the right hip right now, my advice in working with sciatic nerve with stretching and strengthening is to not go into further acute pain. So if it's hot today, you want to really ease off and don't add to that. If it feels good, like there's some relief in the stretch, you stick with it, but don't overdo. So let's move that knee out and then bring it just straight back to its normal position in, keeping the pelvis neutral, and then knee moves out again. Let's do that one more time, just crossing slightly from the plumb line toward the middle there. Notice what you feel. The back will be a little flatter the floor, so you don't have to force the low back curve. Good. And then bring the knee out, the right hand on the knee, and just circle that knee comfortably. So again, if you have pain, keep the circle small. Might be more oval shaped. And your pelvis is absolutely allowed to rock and roll with the circle. So don't glue it to the floor. Pause, go the other way. Excellent. Come back to center, nice and easy. Set that foot down. Push into the foot lightly so you can leverage and slide your left foot flat more easily. Bring the left knee in, a light interlace, your choice of position. Settle the pelvis down. Upper back is still long, neck is long, and then you can inchworm the right leg out if it feels okay to do so. Reach out through the heel. Feel that inner right groin sort of softening, hollowing out, right along the line where the kind of the underwear line would go there through the thigh crease. And breathe. And rotate the left ankle. Nice big rotations. And then go the other way. Good. And then pause, spread out the toes. Just notice how things are feeling. And then we'll move the knee out the length of the arms. And the right hand will draw the knee. Again, don't go too crazy over across the body, but just sort of in toward you and toward the midline, the plumb line of the body. And breathe there. Notice the clearance in the hip. So if you have stuff going on in your hips, you're just conscious of not pulling hard. You're playing with the respect of the joint while hopefully feeling a little stretch in that outer leg and hip. And then let's move the knee out the length of the arms and draw back in toward the neutral position with the neutral low back. So you give the low back its little natural curve back. And then inhale out the length of the arms again. We'll do that one more time. Just slightly across toward the middle, enough that you feel a little compression and outer hip. As you breathe the belly full, you can take advantage of that compression down deep in the belly, the descending colon here, the reproductive organs, everything getting that little compression as you breathe. Now move the knee out, bring the left hand to the knee and start to create your size and shape of the circular motion. Let the pelvis rock around with the circle. Then pause and go the other way. So in dealing with sciatica, it's definitely my understanding of it, and working with different types of movement and therapeutics teachers has evolved over the years. It used to be just stretch the heck out of it. You know, we do a lot of outer hip stretches. We do pigeon pose and hang out there like a yin pose and hope that that worked. Come back to center after you're evened out. Set the foot down, leverage into it, and nice and easy flatten your right foot. Now take your feet a little bit wider and your arms out from your heart. And then start to sway, do a subtle sway, about half of your normal depth of the knees one way, your head the other. So some of the ways that's changed is that stretching alone hasn't found to always be the fix that is needed to get longer term relief. In your windshield wiper twist, as it feels good, you can slowly deepen the angle of the legs and the head, just to the max about 3/4 of the way to the floor. So one of the ways that we can actually irritate the sciatic nerve and the low back sacrum is by, like this simple pose, it's supposed to be pretty gentle and benign. If you try to take your knees all the way to the floor, it might feel like a good stretch, but it's really cranking into the L5-S1 and into the sacral joints that could irritate a lot of things, including the sciatic nerve. So some of the shifts in the thinking have been that things like pendiculation, which is engaging the muscle area, then slowly lengthening it out, in which a different part of your brain learns that that muscle was tight and it changes it. Certainly some stretching, even certain gentle back bends like Sphinx pose being held with the hips shifted a certain way. That seems to take the pressure off for some folks. And it can come from different areas. Sometimes it's the lumbar sacral spine. Sometimes it's more involved the outer buttock and the external rotators. Sometimes it's a combination. So even knowing that, knowing that you hopefully don't have disc compression or other things going on that might need some PT support is good to know. All right, and then when you come back to center, narrow the feet, and breathe in fully and exhale a good sigh. Good. All right, then walk one knee in, followed by the other, and the back kisses the floor here, your hands on the knees, and you'll guide opposite moving circles. So the knees move gently apart and come back and around. Same idea, you stay under the radar of pain if possible. You choose how the shape is, circular, oval, and the size. Slow it down, reverse it. And then pause. If you can bring the legs up a little higher without discomfort, shake out the legs and arms in the air and loosening up the fascia, doing some even qigong work, and there's some tapping you can do on the outer leg. Sometimes this just takes it to a more subtle and interesting level of how to free up the nerves in the body. So shaking can sometimes confuse the tissues in a good way and help them release their grip. And then bring the knees in. So one thing that we do often, and we're not going to do it in this moment, but just a cue to, if you have sciatica, to stay away from, I would stay away from external rotators like this, like just really opening the knees or happy babies. That's usually maybe taking it into the area that's a little closed off already. So don't have to go there with that. But we are now going to roll to our side. So which, if you're turned sideways like I am to the camera, roll to the side that you can still see me. If you're facing the other way, you might want to adjust your mat if you're having trouble seeing me. So on our sides, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to try to go through them fairly quickly to give you some ideas of how to loosen up and work with, and also use pendiculation and strengthening to keep this area healthy from the outer leg, the hips and back, and the pelvis, and also get yourself some relief. So we're going to do the leg slide movement, and the legs are stacked and the feet can be actually in line with the knees, if that works for you, kind of a right angle. I'm going to scoot back so I have myself on blanket. And then the top hand can be on that top leg. And this one's kind of hard to show with my yoga pants, but I'm going to put my hand on the end of that top knee, and it's going to slide forward of the bottom leg, and my upper body even rotated more toward the earth. Then it's going to slide back, and my chest still slightly open, and I'm just using my hand tucked underneath my head. If you have a second blanket, you can use that. And then it'll slide forward. So this action, you can do it real small, so you're not feeling it's firing up or uncomfortable, or you can really kind of explore what's a comfortable depth that just feels like that pleasant tension, that pleasant sensation. So you're going to go back and forth. So let me be clear that the ankles stay stacked, the knee and thigh stay in line with the bottom knee and thigh. It's just that it slides forward and it slides back. So I'm going to show this from another angle that might be helpful. So it slides forward and it slides back, but it's not sliding down away from the other leg. So it's not doing that. It's more right in line with the other leg, but it's gliding past it and it's gliding back behind it. And I'm sort of exaggerating the movement. Don't worry if you are doing a smaller movement. I want you to try to see what's happening. Okay.
Just a couple more of those. And if anything feels too intense and even lessening isn't helpful, just stop, just rest. All right, awesome. Then come back to center. So this is one that is given through Thomas Hanna Somatics, clinical somatics, to help release sciatica. But I just want to again caution you, if you're in an acute state or hot pain, you want to do just a couple of these, and if it's too much, stop. So these are the little clam shells. That's kind of what I call them because it reminds me of how PT people teach them. Tuck your heels in a little bit more. Put your hand on the side of the hip. You'll feel the side of that bone sticking out. There's your greater trochanter. Go a little bit behind that. And right in there, not only the glutes, but your external rotators. So we're going to keep the ankles together and clamshell the top knee up just enough that you feel that buttock fire so you can actually feel the tension in it. And then as slow and smooth as you can, release it down. And so it might be choppy. You're going to try to control it. When your legs meet, totally rest. See if you can get that muscle just totally calm down. And then lift again. Bottom leg stays down. You can press down through the bottom leg a little. Don't go too high. Feel the muscles. And then a slow release after a couple seconds in the hold. Totally relax when you land. And then a couple more. So it doesn't take many of these for any of us to do. But again, if you're experiencing intensity, a lot of intensity, just do one or two. Rest again in between. That's an important piece of it. The contracting is an important piece. That's getting your sensory motor cortex to pay attention. Feel that squeeze at the top of it. Make sure it's not too harsh. The slow release, now that's sort of the retraining of the muscles that might be super tight or weak or not firing well. So if you've got shaking, that's a sign. It's like you have a little sensory motor amnesia is what they call it. So it's actually like, oh, good, now I can undo that. You undo it by smoothing it out. All right, so we've done 4 of those. Let's leave it at that. And then we'll do the IT band one that I think also helps because that sciatic nerve line goes all the way down to the ankle heel sometimes. So straighten out your top leg. We're going to do like 3 of these. And you're going to spin the leg inward. So your big toes it's a weird kind of pigeon toe position. And bring that top hand to the outer thigh. So there's that IT band zone. So you're going to press the thigh and the hand together. So if I was in real hot pain there, I would just do that. I would engage the leg into the hand into the leg isometrically, and then I'd relax. So that's version 1. Version 2, you press into the hand and you lift the leg. And you try to keep that little pigeon toe, which is funky. And then you try to slowly and smoothly, mine's pretty choppy today, try to release it down, let the big toe land, and as much as you can in that weird position, relax. You might even rub the tissue. Just let it know it's okay. Calm down, and then we repeat. Press the leg and hand together, maybe lift up, maybe just do the isometrics. Pause, and then slowly try to smooth it out. Let it come down. Relax as much as you can, maybe massage there. And we'll do 1 more. So you can certainly work these a little bit more, but we're just going to keep them short and sweet. You wouldn't want to do probably more than 5 or 6, so you don't want to overdo these. Ooh, I can feel that today. And then slowly release, massage it out. Go ahead and bend the knee and just relax that. Good. All right, so if you can't see me because you're going to be rolling to your back, you might want to change sides like I will. So we'll spin around to the other side. Get your head supported. Get your knees so they're kind of at a right angle and your feet out underneath the knees. And then get your side body as comfortable as possible. If you want to add a blanket or under your head, you can, if you don't like resting on your arm. Top hand on the top leg and start to glide it forward so your feet pretty much stay together. But you glide the top leg forward, your upper body gently goes with it. You glide it back, and now my knee is behind the bottom knee. And then you glide forward. And you're just going to take this like a smooth, just like the word glide, smooth gliding action. So sometimes this can help unstick the tissues that get super tight, the outer hips, the buttock, and even if the SI joint is just so locked in, it's not getting the little millimeters of movement that it needs for like healthy walking. You know, if we've been sitting too long, this is kind of a nice way of getting some contralateral movement while lying down, like you took a walk. And you might feel, I can feel a little stretch on the bottom hip as I go back and forth. Good. And just keep honoring your experience in it. So all this stuff is meant to be customized and useful to you in your body today. All right, then come back to stacking and tuck your heels a little bit more underneath you. The knees might slightly lower so they're not so high up at the hip height. Bring your hand to the greater trochanter so you've got that kind of outer hip bone you can feel there, and then go right behind that into the outer edge of the buttock. And external rotators are there, and of course the glutes as well. Ankles together, clamshell the top knee up while the bottom leg gently presses. Notice where you feel it, that little squeeze, then a slow, you might even take your eyes to that top leg. What's going on with the smoothness? Are you able to do it smoothly? I'm still a little choppy there. And then relax, get heavy. Really relax, because that's training your muscles now, like, okay, we've lengthened it out. Now we're going to just stay calm and learn our resting length. And then you press again and you lift the top clamshell. And then you slowly bring it down. Now, if you're interested in any of these series that, at least some of them that we're doing, there are little videos of it, and I can send those to you. So just reach out to me if you want to do these again, but you didn't memorize them from class. All right, if you're okay with it, one more in your timing after you rest. So this is a way of working with external rotators that's not nearly probably as pleasant as like pigeon pose, but it's sort of the replacement for that. So we're not just stretching it, we're pendiculating it. All right, so after you've rested, now extend that top leg and find the pigeon toe position if you can, and bring your hand to the outer leg. Now, if you're keeping it on the little more gentle side, you engage the leg and the hand together. Your foot doesn't even have to leave the floor, and then you relax, all right? If you're moving on, you press the leg and hand together, and you lift the leg up. Might be 5 to 15 inches, and then see if you can slowly, in a controlled manner, bring the foot back down, relax the tissues, massage them out some. And then engage again, inhale up, pause at the height of that. Notice how you're pressing down through the kickstand leg on the floor. And then see if you can smoothly bring it down. So if it's real choppy, don't let that disturb you so much, but think of it more as like, oh, okay, I have some things I can do here that might help shift the tension that I'm carrying. So it will get smoother as you progress over the days. You know, you might do it really mindfully every day, or you might do it 2-3 times a week. And then once you've landed again, go ahead and bend the knee. We don't want to overdo. Let's rest. Nice full breath in. Exhale, sigh. Very good. All right, let's roll onto our backs, because before we come up, I do want to give you a little proper yoga stretch there, so you don't feel like you're tight from those. So let's place the right ankle on the left thigh with the hip and knee rotated out no more than 45 degrees, and then lift the left foot up off the floor. So you're going to do the old eye of the needle there, and you'll either use just the leverage of the left leg to hold it, or you'll thread your hands or a belt through and behind the left thigh. So the tweak on this that I didn't know for at least the first decade of my teaching was in order to not crank the sacral ligaments, we actually don't necessarily want to push the thigh open farther, like getting that 90-degree ballerina kind of intense turnout. Often we end up borrowing from where the sacrum meets the pelvis.
So it can irritate especially those nerves, and it can weaken your ligaments. Not a great thing. So that's why I keep saying 45-degree max, maybe less. And notice what you feel there. Are you okay with it? And then nice, easy release. Left foot comes down. Lift your right foot, rotate the leg, set the foot down. Left leg lifts, rotate slightly out. Set the ankle or the heel. Lift the right foot up. Watch that you don't crank the left thigh open. You might be able to thread through the eye of the needle, the figure 4. And so you can see mine doesn't have a really big turnout. It feels like it's pretty tight up against my arm there, and I'm not trying to leverage it like I did for years and years and push it open. Your back is kissing the floor here. Your back is absolutely, grounded. Your upper buttocks is also grounded. So especially if you're real tight, you have to hike the knees up to get there. Just watch that you're not resting all the weight on your discs and the low lumbar vertebra. You want your upper pelvis to take some of the weight. Spread out the toes, make sure knees are happy, joints come first, spine comes first before we chase a stretch. Good work. And then next inhale, set the right foot down, lift the left foot, rotate the leg, set the foot down. Breathe in fully, exhale, good sigh. Good. And then walk one knee in, the other knee in, hands on the knees, and circle same direction. And then go the other way. Then roll to one side. And on your inhale, hang your head, press yourself up. Okie dokie. So let's fold our blankets so we have a little bit of kneeling support. I'm going to take us pretty quickly into, and you can stick with cat-cow, but if you want to go into this short dog, it's a way of stretching the outer line of the leg that might feel good to you. All right, so coming to tabletop, make sure the padding of the knees is enough. And if you're right underneath the shoulders, let's move the hands just an inch or two forward. So this is a short dog, so it'll feel short. It'll feel a little tight. If you need to move your hands out farther, you do. Curl the toes, hug the arms in, press down into the earth, and lift the knees. And then see if you can pull the pelvis up. Now, pretty much for all of us, keeping the knees bent here is going to be important. We haven't done a big hamstring stretch today, so you're going to notice how that feels, just keeping the knees bent. And then see if you can bend your left knee more. So as you bend your left knee more, your left pelvis and hip will drop. Now let's see if we can keep that deeper bend to the knee, and the left side pelvis pulls back up an inch or two. So in that interesting move where you're kind of playing this tug of war between the knee staying deeply bent and the pelvis being called back up, maybe not to totally match the right side, but getting there, you'll feel maybe an interesting stretch along the legs there, along the hips. And then let's come up high on the balls of the feet. Maybe your legs straighten and your shoulders may need to shift a little forward to allow that. Then bend both knees and get your spine a little longer and deeply bend the right knee. And I'll show this kind of from the rear view so you can see a little bit more what my hip's doing. So it's down right now, right? The right buttock. Then try to keep the knee pretty deeply bent and pull the right side buttock, just like a string's on that hip, and it pulls it back up. And see what you feel. Sometimes it accesses a little bit of that sciatic nerve line, and we'll do some standing stuff for that too. Good. Now let's come back up on the high balls of the feet. Walk your feet back a little farther. Give yourself that full dog space. Bend one knee at a time. Now if you need to rest, absolutely come down as soon as you need to. You're just building your own comfort and stamina here. Roll to the top side of each foot. You can return to cat-cow if you would like that. And then see how it feels if you're in dog with me. Bend your right knee and rotate, twist the torso to look left. That can be a nice outer hip waistline stretch. Back up, balls of the feet, bend the left knee, rotate, look right. And back up. Excellent. Let's all lift the knees up for a moment. If you're in tabletop, walk the feet toward the blanket. Walk your hands back toward the feet. Take your time. And then let's widen the feet. Let's do that traction stretch. Sometimes that helps, folks. And have your feet about as wide as the mat and your forearms walk up onto the thighs. So this is the one where you consciously, sometimes we used to talk about this in the studio, is thighs back and apart. So if that rings the bell and makes sense to you, move thighs back and apart. Think thigh creases going deep and the butt back, back, back. And you'll feel a pretty deep stretch in the legs. Make sure hamstrings are okay. And what happens there is when we sort of flare open the sits bone, sometimes it makes more space for the nerve to pass through. You can press into your forearms and then maybe enjoy elongated spinal stretch by engaging in your forearms and pulling your head long and forward. And breathe. Heavy through the toes, the tires of the feet. Make sure everything's good. Excellent. Lighten that up. So make sure you're not push-pulling. Walk your hands to the knees. Press a little higher. And then move the pelvis forward as you walk the hands up and roll the shoulders. So let's bend well. We are hip hingers, not cashew nuts. So bend well, grab your blanket, get it out of the way. And let's incorporate the block. We're going to use it in a moment. So let's have it there if you've got it, or if you're using a stack of books. And so there's this one that I knew for years that would help kind of wake up and stretch that outline of the leg that we've been doing stuff with. And it was, touch the floor and spin open like a big old twisted uttanasana. The problem with that is getting to the floor and what happens to the low back in the process can be compromising. So this is sort of a more gentle variation. So I'm going to mirror you here. We're going to bend the right knee. So the left leg is going to stay straighter. Bend the left knee. And if you need to widen your feet some, that's okay. Just don't go way wider than the hips. And bring your hand to the leg. Show that a little bit angled. Or your forearm. So what's going to dictate your choice is whether or not your sacrum and low back are comfortable at that level, or like, ooh, it's much better to be on the hand. So that's what you're choosing. What feels best to the low back. And right there, I don't know about you, but I can already feel a stretch on that straightened, or straight as it can be, right leg. Or, sorry, it's your left leg. I stopped mirroring you. So your forearm or hands on the right bent knee, and your left leg's straight. All right, so that right there, just breathing into that can give you something. And then if you're moving on from that, you could bring your left hand to the left buttock. Extend, sort of just like you did with the traction stretch, extend your head forward as you push into the hand or the forearm. And then see how that increases it. Can you feel a nerve change there? And then perhaps shrug, especially the left shoulder, and start to rotate the upper body gently to the left. Now you don't have to do a big old rotation where you're trying to be parallel to the side wall. You're just doing that little bit of rotation. Good. Breathe into it. If it gets too hot, too uncomfortable, you ease up. Good. And then come back around. Let's slide the left hand to the knee and the right hand up to the knee. And then as you're there, you're just going to bend one at a time. Just kind of so it's almost like that gliding action again. Pelvis and sacrum get a little movement there. Good. Okay, then bend the left knee. Either the left hand stays on the leg, or you decide, yeah, it feels good. I can hip hinge back, and I can put my left forearm on the left leg. So make wise choices. Your right leg is straight if possible. And just there, don't twist, just look down. Find your points of power, the toned belly, the sternum, the head, and notice what you feel along that line from the buttock, perhaps down the back or outer leg, maybe all the way down to the heel. This nerve in the body is as big as the circumference of your thumb. I believe it's the biggest nerve in the body. If you're moving on, right hand comes to the buttock. Press into your left hand or forearm and extend your head straight forward. So you kind of use that traction press again. Right there, I personally feel an increase. That might be it for you. Shrug the right shoulder to go on and do a little upper body rotation, subtle twist to the right. And breathe. Good work. And then easing back around, bend the right knee, place the right hand, then the left hand on the knee. And as you're there, again, do kind of the back and forth. And then some less conventional releases. Pause and go ahead and walk up. I sometimes call this like the Tahitian glute shake. So Tahitian dancers get this really fast going on, and it makes the little skirt go, if you've ever seen that, it's pretty cool. But if you can learn to shake the legs and the buttocks really, really quick, and I even find, even though I don't talk about tucking the tail very much, if you tuck the tail under, let's say your butt is just like, it's clenched, you know that's where the issue's coming from. And our glutes get tight just from having to sit and be sedentary anyway. So you can bend the knees, maybe even draw the tail, let it hang straight down, and then shake as quick as you can. It's gonna feel very strange. And your butt's gonna start going fast, fast, fast. And it just becomes like, it reminds me of like, you remember those, you'd see in like the old school exercise gyms. They'd put the strap around the person and it would vibrate the heck out of them. And they actually do have very fancy, expensive foot plates that people stand on now to get a high vibratory effect. So this is your inexpensive foot plate vibration. So sometimes confusing that tissue, getting a little Tahitian butt shake can help release. All right, stand again. So then we'll do a little energetic thing. So I learned this from a kind of body healer years ago, a Desert Song, and it had to do with the tapping. So you cup the hands and you start tapping along that line. So if you have tight IT bands, if you have sciatic stuff, so you tap, 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 bend the knees, tap all the way down, tap back up, tap all the way down, and make sure you're hip hinging. So this is more like an energetic clear. All right, then when you come back up again, I want you to take the hands like you're wrapping them around here, thumb on one side, and you're gonna swoosh down the side. And you're gonna do that like you're just clearing house there. Clear it out, clear it out, clear it out. Good. And then come down to the feet or ankles or shins. Notice how you're feeling. And then kind of neutralize the spine so if it's rounded, bring it neutral. Walk yourself back up. Excellent. Now we'll try the foot raised position. So this again kind of accesses that place in another way, the outer hip, outer leg. So your left foot would be up higher than the right. Now if you don't have something to stand on, you might just try ball of the foot, see what that does. So these are similar to the short dog move and some of the other access points. So our foot's solid, we're making sure we're not gonna fall over. And you hip hinge back. So left leg will be a little bent, right? Hip hinge back and see if you can slide your hands down the left leg to wherever you can be. I'll show that from the forward position again. So you're really taking care of your low back and sacrum. Boy, if we skip that, we're in trouble. So don't worry about getting down to any particular zone on the leg, but notice what you feel. And also, it shifts the energy. Like I can really feel it in my straightened leg right now that's on the floor. But if I also lean my torso slightly across toward the bent leg with the foot on the block, ooh, there's an interesting spot. So you might feel that really in the outer left buttock for you and the back of the hamstring. And just make sure it's all a smart and wise choice for you. If it's sharp, painful, it's not it. All right, and then if you're kind of swung over like I was, come back to neutral, and let's give a little bend to the right leg as well and walk up the left leg. Ooh, good. All right. Switch it over to the other foot. And of course, if you had one side that was fired up, you would probably do that a second time if it worked for you. So foot grounded, or maybe you're on the ball of the foot, hip hinge back, slide the hands down the leg that's on the lift, right leg, and really stop where you need to. Maybe it's your forearm on the right leg, on the top of the knee there. Maybe hands down farther feels good. Notice if you feel more in the straightened left leg at this moment. And as long as your spine's happy, butt's back, low back's long, you might even try taking the vector of the torso slightly across to the right. And I find this actually increases the sensation for both legs, the straightened left leg and the bent leg with the foot on the block. So invite the breath where you feel it. No hurry, no need to overbreathe there. Good job. And then if you're slightly rotated, just come back to neutral first. Let's put a bend in that left knee. Walk your hands up the right leg. And then once you're all the way up, come off the block. Let's shake a leg and shake a leg. Good. And then take your blanket again. Let's open it up if you like to have something underneath your spine like that. And we're going to use that block. You might even use a firmly folded blanket or towel as a supported bridge. Now this is one that sometimes really gives people relief through the SI joint if it's a little wonky, if you have a little pelvic torsion going on. And it can also sometimes be helpful for those nerve issues. So let's see how it goes. So having something propped up, if you had a softer item like a bolster cushion, that may also do the trick for you. The firmness of the block, though, can give your sacrum some good feedback. So we're going flat and wide. We're going to shrug our shoulders, rock the blades slightly in toward the spine, come to the balls of the feet, inhale, lift the pelvis, and tuck the flat, lowest, widest block position underneath the pelvis and really the upper buttocks, not the flesh of the low back, and the ends of the buttocks and the tailbone will be off the block slightly. So you just keep lifting and adjusting until you know you found that landing pad of the sacrum and the sort of the elephant ears of the pelvis. And then check in with your neck and shoulders. You might need to slide the whole situation back a little more onto the arm bones, where you might pull the block with you and then reset. Open up perhaps the palms if that feels okay to you. If you need more support in the upper back, bend your elbows in robot position, palms face in. Check in with your neck. You don't have a pile of blankets or anything under your head right now. You want your head pretty neutral from forehead to chin. And when you say something to yourself, you don't want any chipmunk sounds, so your throat is open enough to sound like you. And then really try to see if it's safe and comfortable for you to sink the weight heavily down into the pelvis and sacrum. Do you need to maybe move your feet out or move them closer? Those things can make a big difference on where the pressure is on the pelvis and the knees. And notice your breath here. It also can get interesting. If you can really relax your belly, your low back curve is naturally lifted because the weight of the pelvis is dictating that. It's heavy on the support. No sinking curved backs going toward the floor. They are lifted in a gentle back bend. But notice as your belly and the viscera of the belly relaxes, how your breath travels and expands and just real malleable into the abdomen. And then anytime we're doing a passive bridge like this, before we ever lift the buttocks up, we want to make sure we engage muscle to support. So let's bend our elbows, robot position. Before you lift up, the feet and arms engage, and engage your core. So like you're going to clear your throat. That's one way to kind of create a wraparound. Gently engage your buttocks and lift up as you inhale. Move the block out, move the shoulders out of the way, and then just ease the spine down. Once you arrive, rest a moment, maybe a clearing breath. Arms can come out from your heart, feet can widen, and you return to that initial windshield wiper twist. And go easy because you've just come out of that passive back bend. I want to make sure the sacrum and the hips are feeling good in this movement. And when you return to center, narrow the feet, just walk the knees in. So let's give the back a chance to kiss the floor. It softens, the knees slightly widen. You don't have to go way wide. And just the upper buttocks are grounded as well as the spine. Breathe the belly full. Exhale a sigh. And again. All right, and then really yogi's choice for relaxation, but I'm going to suggest a constructive rest without the props. So we don't take the time to set up the block and belt. You may not even have both the block and belt. So skip the belt part. Let's move the feet down to the floor and move them out a comfortable hip width, just far enough that the back side of your knees feel like there's some space there. So that's usually a good blueprint for finding the position of the feet compared to the pelvis. And then the upper back, it's elongated. The low back curve, it's not exaggerated, but it's not squished to the floor. Hands can rest at the thigh creases on top of the pelvic ASIS points there, the front of the pelvis. Or if it's better for you to have hands elsewhere on the belly or chest or at your sides, go for it. Sink down through the balls of the feet, the center of the heels, and then just try to go through the bottom of each toe so you sink it in. You're not pressing into it, but you're sinking it down. As that happens, your knees begin to find this just perfect balance, like a pendulum that's hanging away from the pull of gravity. So it's got this perfect plumb line up toward the ceiling. And that aligns the knees through the feet, through the pelvis in a way that the knees stay steady, straight up and down. Softening thigh creases, buttocks, outer hips, belly, pelvic floor, low back. It's not holding tension for its curve, it's soft. Ribs, solar plexus, heart, lungs, upper chest, neck, collarbones, arms and hands. The neck lengthens, soften the face, let the eyelids be heavy, the tongue rest down, the teeth part. Soften, rest. And tension points might bubble up. As they do, know that they're coming up to be released. And just sink back into the presence of this pose. Constructive rest.
eyes, just noticing the layers of release or relaxation you may have experienced here. Practicing this and using a belt and block can even be more helpful. For 10 minutes is a wonderful way to shift things going on in the pelvis, low back, hips, and knees. It's a good emotional rebalancer as well, which I think we can all use these days. So just easily return to your breath. Notice in your relaxed state where the breath naturally expands. How far down, how far up, wide, into the back. Where does it move? Softly move fingers and toes. Sway the head if you'd like. Whenever exiting constructive rest, we try to keep the iliopsoas, that important hip flexor, calm. So if you can slide up to the ball of one foot and bring that foot in closer, and then the ball of the other foot, you just kind of tiptoe back in toward the buttocks, and then eventually lift one foot up off the floor, followed by the other. Give yourself a gentle hug. The knees can widen, rock gently. Check in with how you feel overall. And then roll to one side. Full breath there. And on your inhale, press yourself up. We close our practice together, our hands joined at our hearts in Anjali Mudra. With our hearts light, we bow our heads, our offering of gratitude, of our respect to each other in our shared practice. May you feel good today. Access the tool that's always there for you, your breath, and the many, many ways we want to be able to access the breath. So carry your yoga with you. And to each other, we say namaste, namaste. Thank you. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. Let me know if you have questions. You can always email me later if you don't have time.